Laporta isn't too keen on letting Messi leave Camp Nou. Is Arteta mad at Aubameyang? Did United sign Cavani too late? What's Lewandowski say on the greatest player of all time? That's what we're going to talk about today, and of course there's always more. Remember to subscribe to our channel and become a part of a growing channel that never skips a beat when it comes to reporting anything related to football. The Cavani Conundrum. Even though he's missed quite a few games due to injury, Edinson Cavani's time at Man United should be considered a success. The Uruguayan international signed for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side as a free agent last summer and has done really well every time he's been given a chance. His off-the-ball movement and his work ethic have earned him plaudits during his time in England. However, at the age of 34, the former PSG man isn't getting any younger. Boca Juniors are reported to be the player's preferred destination for next season, and the former England manager believes that United signed Cavani too late. Hoddle says that had the club signed Cavani 5 or 6 years ago, they would never have faced the goal-scoring issues that have besieged them pretty much ever since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. The former England manager says that the club really needs to find a younger player of Cavani's attributes. Indeed, Cavani's excellent movement and deadly finishing made him one of the most potent strikers in Europe for a number of years. Perhaps United would do well to find a similar player this summer if they're to fight for top honours. Chelsea reach another high with Tuchel. Those days when Chelsea were a laughingstock of the wider football community have become a distant memory. Since they fired Frank Lampard and replaced him with Thomas Tuchel, the Blues have become quite the force to be reckoned with. And after beating Atletico Madrid 2-0 in the second leg of the Champions League round of 16 tie, the Londoners are now on a 13-game unbeaten run, the longest ever unbeaten start by a Chelsea manager. This is a truly remarkable achievement, given the fact that the German tactician had inherited a squad that was devoid of self-confidence and consistency. The game against Atletico was a really big indication of how far this team could go. Of course, statistical markers carry little weight in the end. We must admit that Chelsea are now a more organised side that banks on a pragmatic approach to get the right results. There are no exceptions, says Arteta. Mikel Arteta decided to leave star striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang out of the starting lineup in the 2-1 win over Tottenham after the Gabon striker apparently arrived late for the pre-game meeting. The former Saint-Etienne man was stuck in traffic, but Arteta decided to stamp his authority and ahead of the Europa League game against Olympiacos says that while he wouldn't be punishing the player any further, Aubameyang needs to earn back his place in the team. While things have been resolved and there's no bad blood, Arteta is likely to stick to his principles and make an example out of the experienced striker. With the Gunners already leading the tie 3-1, we figured that the Spanish tactician isn't really going to be haunted by his decision. Do you think Arteta has made the right call? Let us know in the comments. There is no one single best player of all time. Okay, so we actually take a lot of time to go through the comments and see the goal-siders fight over who's the greatest of all time. We do try to be a voice of reason and try to be as impartial as possible. How do you define greatness? That is a big question. And how about you all tell us what you perceive to be greatness? Bayern Munich's goal machine, Robert Lewandowski, recently spoke to the media about the greatest player on the planet in his book, and the Polish international gave a very measured response. The veteran striker has a long list of past and present stars that he admires, but struggles to choose just one player. In fact, if you ask us, Lewandowski himself is one of the greatest of all time, alongside Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Lewandowski is actually right when he says that you cannot single out just one player. Indeed, it would be unfair to label Ronaldo and Messi as the greatest of all time and then completely forget about Ronaldinho and the other Ronaldo. And what about the trailblazers such as Eric Cantona, George Best, Johan Cruyff, Pele, Maradona and Garrincha? That would be unfair if we forgot all those guys, right? Every era has a list of legendary players. Ask someone who grew up in the 60s and they'll talk about Eusebio, Garrincha, George Best. Ask someone who was born in the 80s and they'll talk about Beckenbauer, Maradona, Van Basten and others. So how about we just agree that the game has produced tons of greats and it's a crime to say that only one player was the absolute greatest. So how about you name your greatest of all time starting 11 in the comments section. Chelsea in for Aguero? Alright, so this bit of news is definitely going to rile up all the Barcelona fans given the fact that we reported in an earlier video how the Catalan club has been tracking Aguero. However, it appears that the Argentine might want to stay in the Premier League once his contract with Man City expires. The former Atletico Madrid man is reportedly eager to stay on in the Premier League before going back to his native Argentina, and it appears that Chelsea are closely monitoring the player's situation. Chelsea have two strikers in the shape of Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner to rely upon, but both men have been a bit inconsistent this season. Tuchel, on his part, has already hinted that he isn't going to show a lot of patience given the team's lofty ambitions. Now, Aguero might boast a sketchy injury record, but the experienced striker is still one of the best on the planet. Signing him would definitely add more competition for places and also allow Tuchel to add another dimension to the team's attack. Mourinho taking on Southgate? He isn't a bad person really, but we think that the Tottenham boss has a superpower to make the nicest statement seem like a barb. Spurs aren't having that great of a season, even though Harry Kane and Heung-min Son are banging in goals all the time. And with the international friendlies coming up, yes, that boring time of the season, Mourinho already has his reservations about his star duo leaving to represent their respective nations. Kane has played 38 games so far this season and did sustain an injury during the season. Son, on the other hand, limped off during the North London derby defeat at the hands of Arsenal, but was still called up to represent South Korea for the friendly game against Japan. While Son might not be used too much by the Koreans, the same can't be said of England, who will play against San Marino, Albania and Poland in the World Cup qualifiers next week. Therefore, it's understandable that Mourinho doesn't want his star player to feature in all three games. By the looks of it, games against San Marino and Albania should be a breeze for Gareth Southgate's men. However, Mourinho did indicate that although he's always proud to see one of his players represent their country, he would like it even more if the national team managers used them wisely. It's not surprising that Southgate and Mourinho have exchanged comments about Kane's involvement with the Three Lions. So yes, it isn't really a big deal to be honest, and you can trust Southgate to assess Kane's long-term fitness before throwing him in at the deep end. An injured Kane isn't great for Spurs, especially for England, who would be expecting him to lead their attack at the 2021 European Championship this summer. Laporta dreaming again. The moment Joan Laporta became Barcelona's latest president, the club's fans started dreaming that Lionel Messi would stay. His election campaign had been essentially built out of his keenness to keep Messi at the Camp Nou until he hangs up his boots. The Argentine wanted to leave last summer, but was forced into staying, and with just a few months left in his current deal, we're not exactly sure what will happen next. The likes of Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City are reportedly willing to finance a lucrative contract for the legendary forward, but at the same time, Barcelona don't want to say adieu to arguably their greatest ever player. And Laporta admits that he will have to convince Messi to carry on, and he even said that he would do everything in his power to make the multiple-time Ballon d'Or winner stay at the club.
Aprofitaré una mica i intentar convèncer el Leo que es quedi, per exemple. Aquestes són coses que s'han de fer, són decisions que s'han de fer.
Barcelona's financial situation is pretty bad, but Laporta claims that everything will be back to normal once the pandemic is over. Well, we're not financial analysts here, but is the return of fans going to be enough to tame the financial mess the club is in? We don't think so. Let's say if fans return to the stadium and there's a full house at Camp Nou every time Barca play at home, it still wouldn't be enough to guide the club out of the dire straits they're in. After years of irresponsible practices, Barcelona don't have the financial clout to keep Messi at the club and continue paying him astronomical figures. At the same time, the club has a massive debt, which will take years to be reduced, provided if the new leadership doesn't start making boneheaded decisions like the previous one. So, Messi staying might look really good on paper, but it would serve no purpose other than putting a giant on life support and expecting it to groan and roar every now and then. It's simply not worth it. So do tell us if it actually seems rational to keep Messi beyond the current campaign, given that the club is clearly in need of a massive overhaul and a complete revamp.